Welcome, everybody. It's great to see people today. My name is Josette Ferrer, and I'm the president of the FBI San Francisco Bay Area chapter. It's great to see not only our local chapter members, but members from other chapters as well. We also want to welcome members of the CFA Society of San Francisco. We've begun a collaboration with them and want to thank CEO Ann O'Brien and President Joyce Lee, who have been really great to team with. So also hope that everybody who is local is staying cool. If you're not in the Bay Area, we're having a heat wave here. I think it's over 96 where I am now. And Irina, I don't know if it's over 100 where you're at.
It might be.
Yeah, so I don't want to jinx us, but I only mention this because sometimes when it gets this hot, things like internet connectivity begin to break down and stuff shuts down. So again, just a heads up, I don't want to jinx us, but hopefully all will go well. Technically. So we are excited to have Irina with us today for our fireside chat. But before we jump into things, I just wanted to mention a couple of chapter-related items to give everybody some updates. So our fiscal year ended in May, and we've really worked hard this past year to continue to provide interesting and educational virtual programs. We're really excited that we're going to have in-person events again. So in addition to the usual in-person events that we hold on the third Thursdays of the month, we're still planning to continue with virtual programs. So this primarily relates to our professional development sessions, so you guys can catch those at home and don't have to drive anywhere for those. So we're in the process of planning our calendar for late summer, fall, and beyond. So members, if there are things that you want to see, definitely let us know. So then as a quick review, in the last 12 months, we've covered a variety of topics and I've had very many interesting speakers. So, our past events have included a couple of topical series, COVID-19, strategic guidance when the pandemic first hit, growth and exit strategies, where we had a SPAC insider view and also looked at a panel talking about exit strategies during the pandemic, as well as career and leadership development sessions. An example was the LinkedIn updates that we did in January. So in addition to the topical series, we were also very lucky to have quite a few great speakers, just a couple of them highlighted here, speakers and panelists. So, proud of what we've done this past year. And one of the names that you may recognize is Professor Oswald Damodaran. He is an author and a frequent guest on CNBC on valuation issues. He spoke for us last fall. He's coming back to speak to us again in September. We don't have a registration link, but save the date, September 9th from 4:30 to 6 p.m. Pacific. Because he's coming back to speak to us again, kind of by popular demand. So that's kind of a quick overview of all of the events over the past year. And I was counting up before we started today. We did over 50 separate events since June started. So a lot of different content. And members out there, if you missed any of our sessions, Matt's going to put in the chat a whole list of all of the sessions that we've had. And if you see the ones with stars, we have video recordings and presentations that we can share with you. And then just contact Dalite, our chapter administrator, if you want access to those items. So definitely have a huge library now that we've had so many programs. The other thing to mention too is, in addition to the usual programs, we have a variety of special groups and events. So our big one is our CFO Bootcamp, which we finished up last week. We actually had 2 bootcamp classes, so the one that ended last week and then another session in September and October of last year. So that was another great session that we went through. We also have several groups that meet periodically. So our career services group led by Bob Miller for folks who are in transition, our women in finance group led by Teresa Matesha, our financial services group led by Matt Siegel, and a new food and beverage SIG that we are coordinating with Naturally North Bay. And I wanted to give Matt a couple of seconds here, or a couple of minutes to talk about the financial services SIG. Matt, can you?
Sure. Thanks, Josette. There are roughly 25 FEI members that are part of this group. They come from banking, insurance, fintech, insurtech, real estate, asset management, and related spaces. We've been very welcoming. The intent is to deepen relationships within the FEI for networking, as well as ask the group to tee up specific topics of interest. And then there are other members of the group that want help with career development. Perhaps they want to find someone within the group who can serve as a mentor, or they're willing to help someone in some other capacity. So fairly informal thus far. I would encourage anyone who's interested in meeting members of the group or just wants to understand a little bit more, please reach out to me. Happy to chat and welcome ideas, interest in anyone who's interested in participating.
Great. Thanks, Matt. We appreciate you leading the group for us this year. And what
Sure,
Matt's going to do, he's going to put email addresses of all the leads of the groups. So definitely feel free to contact any of them. So Bob, Teresa, Matt, or Mark, if you are interested in looking at one of those groups. And then finally, if you are not following us on our LinkedIn page, definitely do that. We'll put a link in the chat there as well. That's probably one of the better places to keep updated with what we're doing with events and initiatives. We are having a post-event social networking event. So if you can join us from 6 to 6:45 p.m. Pacific time, and you haven't registered for that, see the chat for the registration link. And if you have already registered, we'll resend the Zoom link for you probably 5 minutes before the session, so you have it for easy reference. Finally, I want to make sure I thank our strategic partners. We would not be able to do what we do without them. So huge thanks to Robert Half, RSM, JP Morgan, the DLC group, in particular Crans, and BDO. And finally, I'm sure folks have a lot of questions as the session goes through. If you can do us a favor and use the Q&A function for the questions, that'll help us keep track of everything. And then if you need CPE credit, this session offers 1.5 CPE hours, and you have to answer all of the polling questions, and there are 5 to answer. And you'll receive your CPE certificate in approximately 3 to 4 weeks. So with that, I think we're ready to start with Irina. Irina, we are so pleased that you are joining us today. We're really looking forward to hearing your perspective and your insights.
Thank you, Josette, for inviting me.
So can you start off, I guess, by giving everybody some background on you, your role at Metal, as well as your past positions?
Sure. I joined Metal about 1.5 years ago. I was brought on to help them with their audit. I think that's when I met Josette. We were working on some things together to finish up their financial audit with BPM. The reason I was brought on is, I'm an auditor by training. I was at Grant Thornton for around 10 years in the beginning of my career. And then I went on to do an IPO of a company, and then worked in tech since then. And I got into blockchain crypto about 3-4 years ago, when I was, my story is I was walking down the street in San Francisco and somebody stopped me and said, can you help me with my crypto startup? It was kind of as random as that I got into it. And, there was a lot of noise in the crypto and blockchain space at the time. And when I was asked by BPM to come help Metallicus, I came on and I realized, that this was a very serious company. At the time was probably one of the maybe 3 or 5 in the US that was even getting an audit in order to receive their money transmitter licenses. And what Metallicus does is it's a payment system where, currently 39 US state residents can go in and buy cryptocurrencies with their debit card. They can deposit cash into fiat into their wallets, and that fiat resides at a bank, our partner bank, and they can use that fiat to buy various cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin, Ethereum being the top ones that they can buy without any fees. And then there are 40 other currencies that they can examine and learn about in the app. And I just thought it was a very innovative and a very user-friendly way of buying crypto, and a secure way because of the regulations that Marshall was going through at the time. And fast forward, I don't know what, a year later, we were sitting in a predicament because the bank that we were banking with decided that they were no longer going to bank us because they did not want to deal with crypto companies. And it was basically that reason. There wasn't really a substantive reason that we received other than that. And Marshall and I were sitting and thinking, and we said, why don't we open our own bank that understands crypto companies, that understands blockchain companies, that understands how much compliance work we had to go through to get here, how compliant our product is, how many partners we have. And, there are numbers of companies like that in the US that are unbanked, that are not able to get operating bank accounts and pay payroll and pay rent because they can't get banking services. So that's where the idea of the first blockchain bank and trust came about. And it was very interesting timing for that, but I'll stop there and we can dig into that, Josette, with your questions.
Yeah, and so I think, that's the genesis of the name of the session, right? Banking the unbanked. The unbanked really relates to the crypto companies like Metal who are not able to do things at a traditional bank, right?
That's exactly it. Crypto blockchains, it created a lot of opportunities for various groups that have been unbanked before. And, we can have a whole session about that. But the unbanked that I am specifically interested in helping are the crypto blockchain fintechs of the US, of the world, that just can't get banking services, basic banking services. And, there are companies who, crypto's here to stay. There are companies who want to incorporate crypto into their offerings. There are fintechs who may want to use it and they don't know how. There isn't a good process, and the banks currently don't offer that for them.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. And we were talking yesterday, how many companies are we talking about, in this particular space that are unbanked?
Well, I don't have a number for the crypto companies, but what we looked at is there are about 7,000 fintechs in the US. And we can slice it and we can make some assumptions that a lot of them, my personal guess, would like to have a crypto offering within their products. And again, my guess is as soon as they say the word crypto, they may have an issue with a bank that they're currently banking with. And another issue that they may have is they don't necessarily know how to incorporate crypto into their products. And in order to do that, you need a very trusted partner, which usually is a bank. Right now, if those fintechs want to issue debit cards, if they want to, let people do wires or ACHs into their accounts, they have to partner with a bank. And that's the playing field that we are exploring of the ones that may want a bank to help them with crypto products as well.
Right. Okay. No, that's a great introduction. Well, we'll dig into it more next. I need to do 2 quick polling questions just to get these out of the way. So if you guys can look at the polling questions, we'll read them now. Just to get a sense, Irina, for everybody's knowledge regarding cryptocurrency and experience. So 2 questions to answer. On a scale of 1 to 5, how closely do you follow crypto developments? 1, the lowest, I do not follow any developments, all the way up to 5. I regularly follow the developments and have a good sense of key market and other dynamics. And then the second question is, do you own Bitcoin or some other form of cryptocurrency? So let's give it maybe another 10 seconds to get everybody to answer. Even if you don't need CPE credits, if you can answer just to help us get the lay of the land for folks in the audience, that would be great. Great. So we're going to close the poll in 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending the polling, and Irina, I'm sharing the results.
Okay.
It looks like
50-50.
Yeah, yeah, pretty interesting. We've got, folks in the middle, the majority of folks, 38%, kind of in the middle with respect to crypto knowledge. And then 6%, a nice amount in terms of folks who follow the markets and industry regularly. And then the Bitcoin ownership question, 41% yes. That's interesting. I think the article that I had been reading in Forbes, that was a study, it was something more like 15 to 17%. So this audience is much more advanced. All right. So thank you for participating in that poll. And let's see. So moving on, Irina, do we need to talk more about Metal's products and services? Do you want to cover the wallet?
Yeah, I mean, we can incorporate it into our questions. One question, I guess, the 59% of the people who don't own Bitcoin, I'd be curious to hear why. And if I were to guess and incorporate the metal product into it, is perhaps they haven't found an easy way to buy it. Mm-hmm. And an easy and, let's say fee-free or low fee way to buy it, and then a secure way to hold it. So this is what we think about at Metal all the time. And the Metal app, if anyone, if you are in one of the 39 states where the Metal app is available, we think that we created a very intuitive way to sign up, to pass KYC, to open this fiat account, to load fiat into the app, and to buy the coins, buy, let's say, Bitcoin or any other cryptocurrency. I guess even going a step further, did you want to own Bitcoin, right? So if any one of those 59% want to own Bitcoin but don't know how, or have the three issues that I mentioned. So at MetalPay, we created an intuitive, very clean, very user-friendly wallet to do it. We don't charge fees for Bitcoin purchases. Our revenue model is a little bit different than charging fees for that. We charge fees for other coins and for other services, but not for Bitcoin. This gives an opportunity for people to, throw in $10 and have, $10 worth of Bitcoin, or go as high as, they want to go, and not have to, pay significant fees. And then the third item is about security. So MetalPay is a custodial wallet, which means that the Bitcoins are sitting at a custodial service provider with various security keys and procedures. And some of you might have heard the word not your key, not your crypto, not your wallet, not your crypto. So this is not a problem for you as a user at MetalPay. If you lose your password, it can be easily reset by us. The crypto is sitting at a licensed custodial service. So that's kind of the high level of MetalPay app. I'd love for everyone to try it. And we are improving and increasing the number of products we will be rolling out in there as the industry offers them.
And I guess for folks who answered in the 59%, if you want to share some thoughts in the chat, we can continue to discuss that as the as the session moves on.
Sure, I'd love to hear why, if you wanted to, but
I can read you one here. We got a comment from Howard Bornstein. He says, "I don't own it because I don't believe it has intrinsic value. How can you promote it when the value is 60,000 one week and 39,000 a few weeks later?"
I'm not promoting Bitcoin.
So that was one.
That's, I'm in a position, with Metal where we're serving people that are past that. I'd love to have a side discussion about whether, you should or should not be buying Bitcoin, but that's not part of our product.
No, there's a whole other conversation to be.
It's a whole other conversation. Yeah.
Exactly. Question, Irina, about your services. Bernadine is asking, you mentioned access to 39 US states. Do you offer services internationally?
So we are within minutes, and I like to say minutes as in months, or hopefully minutes of rolling out Europe. We are in the process, in the final stages of getting a certain license in Lithuania. And once we get that license, we already have a service provider, a technical service provider, with which we're going to be rolling out. This was supposed to be done in October, but then Brexit happened and we were kind of pushed behind. But please stay tuned. Europe is coming, and more states in the US is coming as well.
Got it. It's all on the list. It's probably a very long list, right?
Yeah, but it is on our roadmap imminently.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So anything else about the products and services? We can move on to really dive into the whole national bank charter focus.
Yeah, let's talk about the bank. I'd be happy to answer more questions about the product, but yeah.
So I guess when you guys decided to apply for a national bank charter, what was the ultimate vision that you and Marshall had? And we've been talking about Marshall. Marshall is the CEO of Metal. Do you want to talk a little bit about Marshall? Because he's really one of the, the premier thinkers, right, in this cryptocurrency space.
Yeah, so Marshall is, he's been in crypto for a while. He created a few very early on Bitcoin related products. He also had a hand in Dogecoin, and our CTO, Glenn Marion, also was involved when Doge was first coming out. The reason I mention is because it's been in the news, and now everybody knows what Dogecoin was. When Marshall talks about it, he said back then it was, one Doge is one Doge, and it was just a community. Marshall has written, he's always been on the side of regulation for all of crypto, because I guess even from the very early days, he didn't see how that would not, how Bitcoin or crypto is going to kind of explode or become a mainstream without regulators getting on board. So he pioneered Cryptocurrency Act of 2020. He wrote a few articles about different regulations that were coming out that had to do with KYC and knowing your customer, and whether wallets should be required to provide that information or to ask that information. So he's always been on the side of regulation, and I think secretly or not so secretly, he wants to be a CEO of a bank, and he wants to open a bank for the companies like his and for the friends and the colleagues that he has. So for me, it was a big deal that he was on that side of the fence when I was joining the company and joining him. Our motto of MetalPay is always act in full transparency and accountability. And this is why, we are kind of running straight into this, if we want to call it fire, running straight into the fire of regulations, OCC, FDIC, the Federal Reserve. So there were a few of us that got together, and we have a consultant whose name is Jason Brad, who's very tuned into everything that goes on at the regulators. He's a former FDIC regulator examiner himself. So we were talking to him, and he said, look, there is an opportunity with Brian Brooks being the comptroller at the time, the acting comptroller at the time, and coming out with very forward-thinking regulations. Yeah, exactly, these letters, regulations that the OCC was coming out with. He said there is an opportunity for us to act upon this thought and act upon this idea of applying for a bank. So there were a few other companies that went through the process at the same time as us. And during the initial conversations with the OCC, we realized that we didn't just want a trust charter in order to provide all of the services MetalPay was providing to its customers. We would need a full banking charter where we could hold fiat for our customers, have accounts for them, and be able to custody their cryptos, and then be able to help them exchange and manage their cryptocurrencies within the bank infrastructure. So we started talking to all three regulators, the OCC, FDIC, and the Federal Reserve, which was very fun and very long, and we're still in the process.
And Irina, I guess the ultimate vision then, is to have the ability, like for the accounts to be FDI insured, so it really just feels like a bank except it's crypto holdings. So all of the benefits of a bank that surround that.
Well, so the FDIC insurance would not apply to crypto. It would be just apply to fiat. But, we talked a little bit about this yesterday, Josette. There are kind of various levels of crypto investors, right? And, maybe this will appeal to the ones that said that they have invested. There are those of us who say, I just want to throw $10, $100, $1,000 into Bitcoin and see what happens. So yeah, you can use MetalPay for that. There's no problem. There are maybe even companies that say, I want to put some of my treasury holdings into Bitcoin. And there are apps and there are companies that can provide, business accounts for crypto and for Bitcoin. But then there are those who, let's say the Michael Saylors, the Elon Musks of the world, right? And there is a whole variety of bits in between them and smaller businesses who want to invest in crypto, but they want to hold it at a bank, and they don't want to download the MetalPay app and link their bank account to that app. They want to go to a bank with all of the bells and whistles of a bank that's regulated by the Federal Reserve. They want their fiat to be FDIC insured, and they want their crypto to be in the hands of a licensed institution. Whether it's insured, there are other versions of insuring crypto than FDIC, there are private insurances, but it would be in the realm of a licensed institution that provides all of the services under one roof. And that's what we think will allow for the adoption and for the ease and for the security of businesses and high net worth individuals owning crypto and being safe about it.
So for investors like Michael Saylor, so for the audience, folks in the audience who don't know, he's the CEO at MicroStrategy. It was the first publicly traded company to invest in very significant treasury assets in Bitcoin. And looking at some information yesterday, I think it was like 3.6 billion in current value. How is he kind of investing with that such large magnitude of value?
Well, our guess is, it's not sitting at any bank because no bank is providing the service. My guess is he had to create a whole custody system and exchange system himself within the company to do it. I don't know if he can just walk into Coinbase and buy this much, or I don't know, you name it, a trust or a fund. So he probably had to create all of this from scratch. And I remember hearing him talking that he was holding a summit for other CEOs of companies like his to share the knowledge, to share, his experience. And after that, I think, Tesla came on board and maybe a few others and said that they're going to follow suit. So we don't know exactly, I personally don't know exactly how he did it, but he has the power to do it, right? Let's imagine a company that's not as big as his and doesn't have that much and doesn't want to invest that much, or even high net worth individuals who want to invest, but they're not going to create their own exchange and custody service for themselves. So that's where we would come in.
Got it. Yeah, that makes sense. It makes it widely available, right? That's the plan. So then, maybe dig in a little bit more with regard to the process that you had to go through for the application. So having to set up entities and development around different things. What were the major milestones that needed to be reached to be able to do that first application?
So the biggest things we had to do, there's probably a few. One of them was assembling a team that both spoke to the regulators and spoke to the required knowledge and experience that a crypto, blockchain serving bank would need. So the OCC actually said that Marshall would be an appropriate CEO in their eyes for the bank that we were opening, we were applying for. We are, not sure where that leads us. There are very specific guidelines in terms of the board members and the executive teams. So we did spend some time, and we're continuing to spend time on determining who the team is going to be. So some of the comments we received was, you need to have banking professionals on your team. So we recently hired a bank president who comes from, years and years of banking experience. We're looking at a board of directors that has specific banking, items under their belts. So that was an important one. The business plan was very important, and we had to really, massage the business plan of a trust versus full bank versus a crypto blockchain company. So we really had to put it in and we're still working on it, in putting the blockchain type products and equating them to, traditional fiat products, so it would be understandable to the regulators of exactly what we're doing, what these new products would be like, how to regulate them, and how to manage them going forward, how to do their examinations of them. And, the other thing was technology. And, I was telling you yesterday how pleasantly surprised we were at the level of the regulators' knowledge of blockchain. We had a call with the OCC and their technical team, and we were just, educating each other, answering their very high technical questions, and our team was answering them and they were asking them. So we're aware that technology is going to be a big deal in this type of bank, but we're also very happy that the regulators are educated in that field.
Right. And we had talked yesterday about how, you really feel it's important to make sure that the regulators kind of know the business and know what's going on, because they eventually have to oversee an audit, right? So it's very important that they know what they're getting into when they grant the charter, and then they know how to review it, right? So this whole process is very important in terms of just helping to get them up to speed.
Yeah, so we are very happy to be educating regulators, and they are asking about it. I think the original, very, very first idea of applying for the bank came out of Marshall and Jason going to office hours by the OCC, where the OCC was, was kind of like open Q&A with them, and Marshall came and talked about this bank and crypto and blockchain, and the fact that Brian Brooks came out with those letters and really opened the door for this activity was great. We had a few banks apply for various for trust charters. What's happening now, as far as I think, is the new comptroller, and he alluded to that in some of his speeches. He wants to make sure that not only is there a process to approve the banks, and there's also a process to properly regulate them. And it would not be good for anyone if a bank got their approval but then couldn't pass the audit or review later on. It's the same as companies that go public and then can't uphold some of the SEC requirements. So we are very much in favor of that being put in place and finalized and developed by the OCC, the FDIC, and the Federal Reserve. So when they come to examine us and other banks who are in the process or who will be approved shortly, when they come to examine us, they know what they're looking for and they have a proper audit plan versus having issues after the approval has happened.
Right. No, that makes sense. And I guess for the audience, we're talking about Brian Brooks. So just to kind of put some perspective on that, Brian Brooks was the acting comptroller of the currency when Metal applied, submitted the application. He began serving in May of 2020. And his whole spin, I guess, Irina, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong, but he was very pro cryptocurrency. So these interpretive letters that are noted on the slide were issued under his watch. And his background prior to becoming the acting comptroller, he was Irina, I think it was the chief legal officer of Coinbase, right?
Correct.
So he, was living in crypto. Yep. He got the position. And so Irina had mentioned then the new acting comptroller is Michael Sue, and he started last month. So he has a bit of a different take, I guess, right, Irina?
Well, I think like I said, he is getting his arms around, the job that he just walked into. And he is reviewing the approvals. He's reviewing everything that's been going on. He's reviewing the process that has been happening. We have dealt with other members of the OCC that kind of turn over less frequently than the comptroller, and we were very happy dealing with them as well, because they are they are supporting the comptroller, and they're the ones who are going through the kind of the day-to-day and the process of approving and regulating the banks. And, I'm again, very happy to say that everybody has met this very favorably, whether it was Brian Brooks's, leadership into, pushing everybody into crypto, or whether it is really something that the regulators are taking seriously. And I would guess that if they weren't taking it seriously, they wouldn't be as well versed in the technology as they are, and as we found that they are. And this goes across the board. They know what they're talking about. There's nothing sliding by them.
Because you had mentioned at that one meeting, you had the CTO and the guys deep in the tech on your side in the meetings, and the regulators were able to hold their own with them.
Yeah. I mean, they were asking all the right questions, and we were giving them the answers, and we're happy to educate them. There's still, there's always a disconnect about whether the theory of something, right, versus practice. So our CTO and our head of blockchain, and Marshall, our CEO, they live and breathe this every day. They're the ones that are building the systems. The regulators know a lot of the theory of it. So I think that's where it becomes interesting, where we can show them how it all converges.
Right. Yeah, it makes it interesting. So at the time that you applied, there were 3 other banks, I'm going to pull up the next slide, that now have conditional approval for trust charters, right? So I guess the approvals here also happened under Brian's watch, right?
I think the approvals happened right after he resigned. So there is another one that's not listed on here that hasn't gotten conditional approval yet, and it's BitPay. These 3 have received conditional approval, and they're in the process of, I guess, meeting their conditions for final approval. We withdrew our application, and we're waiting for the new controller and the new teams to come out with more guidance as to what they're going to be looking for from applications like ours. And we're getting ready with our business plan and our team and a few other things. We are, frantically writing it, right? Not frantically, but we are writing our business plan right now and getting ready for this new regulation to resubmit our application. But we do want to take it a little bit slower and understand exactly what this comptroller and his team is going to be looking for in the application and in the approval process, and then in regulating the approved banks.
So you ended up pulling the application. Was it primarily because of the change in the administration, or was it because the whole initial process, like you said, it went by really fast, right? It was done so quickly.
Yeah, we decided that it would be better for us to change a few things and wait until we get some more clarification before we, because once you submit it, you're in the process of, defending it for conditional approval. And we decided that we wanted to do a little bit more work before we start that process, because things could change in the meantime. And, we really didn't want to be chasing, new regulation as we're going through that process.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Do you think other companies are in the same position as you're in? Do you expect a lot of similar applications to the OCC for crypto companies?
There were a few others that applied that are in the space at the same time. I don't know what their statuses were. I think that I hope so. I hope that this becomes something that the companies will want. There are a few that have received state level licenses and are, getting ready to operate on that level. There are a lot of variations of becoming compliant and becoming a banking company. And I mean, I'm very, very happy and very excited that, whoever applies, I don't see it as a competition at all. I'm very happy whoever applies, whoever gets approved, we're very happy, because it just shows that the regulation is moving forward and the market is moving forward and the industry is moving forward.
Right. Are you seeing, I guess, folks in your industry, becoming more, accepting of following regulations? You mentioned that you were on a panel a couple of weeks ago, and everybody else on the panel was just poo-pooing regulations.
Well, it's hard internationally. I was abroad at a conference, and the U.S. regulations are different because the U.S. citizens are used to them, or there is a certain level of trust that people put into banks, and then they are expected to be regulated, I guess. There are other places in the world that don't have that need and don't have that expectation. We weren't the most popular people. Marshall wasn't when he came out and he said he supports regulation, and he supports, there was a letter he wrote about specific things about KYC and how he supports that. But, there's a very small percentage of, let's say crypto users that don't support it. And, unfortunately, they won't be banked by a regulated bank, but there is a much larger population who wants crypto in their daily financial needs, and they want it from a regulated bank or regulated financial institutions. So that's who we're appealing to.
Right. No, that makes sense. So in the discussions with the SEC, which, I guess, areas do you feel are most important for them to understand as you start thinking about the future reviews and things like that? Are there one or two things that you say, these are really the key aspects, not just for us, but also for other companies that may get reviewed?
I think sometimes this kind of came up a little bit in the letters that both we received and some of these companies even received. Sometimes the crypto companies like us and the ones on this slide are criticized for their products as, something that avoids regulation. But if you really dig into it, it's actually something that benefits it. And I think that that's going to be a bridge. There's going to be a lot of education that we'll need to provide. And, that's going to be a bridge of properly interpreting exactly what we are proposing to do with crypto and using what we're proposing to use blockchain for, not to avoid at all, not, and in fact, maybe to even improve, transparency and reporting. And I think there is still some disconnect, and with I wouldn't say it's with these regulators, but with people who are interested parties of this being a regulated industry, in terms of is blockchain going against it or is it helping it? And I think that's where most of our education uphill battle, I think, is really happening.
Yeah, so it's interesting. I guess that the politicians are getting involved too, right? So there was something from Senate Banking Chair Sherrod Brown, I think it was last month, and he was pushing the OCC to reconsider or asking them to rescind the bank charters or the conditional bank charters, I got to say it right, for these three. Yeah. Do you see that influencing, I guess, where the wind blows at the OCC?
I don't know. I hope not. I hope that it will be not like necessarily rescinding them, but maybe asking to clarify more things in more education. But I think it's for the benefit to have regulated institutions like this, and they all need to go, us have to go through the proper process and then through proper audits. And I think that's where the issue is. And it's not whether this should exist, but whether this should exist in a compliant, auditable, accessible, and transparent way.
And what does that framework look like, right? That makes everybody happy so that all the party ecosystem can work, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's not, this service is needed. I don't know if it's obvious. It is to me. But I hope it becomes more and more obvious that the services that these three companies provide, what we are offering, we are planning on to be offering with First Blockchain Bank and Trust, all of this is needed for the industry. It's needed for our economy, for the world economy. We just need to put the proper process around giving these licenses and then regulating these licenses.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. We skipped over a slide earlier. I think this is a good kind of segue into just how big, the cryptocurrency market is. And we pulled some information from this morning. We're looking at the total value of all cryptocurrencies as being $1.57 trillion, with Bitcoin obviously being the biggest at 707 billion. So I think, Irina, this stuff is getting so big that we really need an ecosystem that can handle it in the way that you said, auditable, transparent, all that good stuff, because it's going to continue to grow, right?
Yeah, I mean, even if you just concentrate on one, which is Bitcoin, where is all this Bitcoin sitting? What can you do with it? And the more it is in a bank and the more the bank can do, the more you can do with that Bitcoin.
Right. So then I guess where you are in the process with the OCC, where do you see things, say, at the end of this year and maybe by the middle of next year? How fast is the train moving as part of your next steps?
I think that the OCC is now that it has this new leader, it's not going to take too long until they come out with something for this industry. I think that it is kind of in everyone's face enough that they are not going to take too long, or it's not going to be on the shelf for too long. I'm not 100% sure of how long the three companies have to pass their final approval, but it is, there is a time frame for that. So I'm hoping, and I think it's going to move, into some direction, and hopefully into the positive direction.
Right. And I guess with the three coming before you, they're kind of like the guinea pigs, right? You can see what happens with them and can take those things, and those are learnings for you and what you submit.
Well, that's exactly why we took the path that we took. It's to see what's happening with these three, and potentially the fourth one, and to see what the current leadership is going to come up with, so we can follow it really, really well, like we did with the previous one.
Right, got it. So maybe one more question with respect to the interaction with the OCC. Are there questions that they haven't yet asked that you think are important for them to know or understand? Since you guys are living in it, it sounds like they are very good with the technology, but are there things that they haven't asked about?
Well, they haven't. They gave us a very detailed letter of a lot of questions. They did ask about a lot of things. I wouldn't. They didn't really miss anything, they turned over every stone. I think there will be more. I think the issues are going to come up when when a bank actually opens and they come to examine it. That's when a lot of the questions are going to come up.
Right.
Because a lot of our business plan is a traditional bank, is DDA accounts, savings accounts, wires, ACHs, cards. A lot of that, they know how to regulate. But it's that piece that has to do with crypto and blockchain. I think that's where a lot of the questions are going to come in. And but the part about the traditional and what they want us to look like to apply, they're very detailed.
Okay. They know what they want, and they've been comprehensive, at least so far.
They took a lot of time with us, and they took, they did.
Oh, this is good. This is great input. Let's do one polling question now. We got to squeeze 3 more in. So based on what we've talked about so far with the OCC, how do the folks in the audience feel about the current status of the OCC's regulation of crypto companies? So more regulation is needed, the current level of regulation is sufficient, or less regulation is needed? So let's give it about 10 more seconds. Very interesting results. So closing the poll in 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending the polling, and Irina sharing the results. More regulation.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Yeah.
All right. So we've talked about the OCC. Can you talk about the interactions and your conversations with the FDIC and the Fed? Were those the 2 other ones? Did I get that right?
Yeah, I mean, it was similar. We had less interactions with them, but it was similar. we're not walking into a room of, blind people who haven't done or heard of this before. And that was very, very great for us to understand. Everybody wanted to be very helpful. I have nothing really to say. I've never dealt with regulators at this level before, and we were always welcomed. We were given help as we needed, in their capacities, and we were given really good guidance. And that's partially why we are waiting for the new guidance to come out, because I think it is going to be good guidance as it has been before.
Right. Gotcha. Okay, well, that's good. It's good insight. I'm going to take a couple of questions actually. So let's see. Edward is asking, and some of these don't necessarily relate to the OCC, but go back to some other issues or some of the products. So he says here, something I'm concerned about is a possible run or liquidity crisis in one or more stable coins or on one of the crypto-based money market platforms. Do you believe this is possible, and how would it affect you?
I'm sorry, can you say that again? If there is a
liquidity crisis related to one or more stable coins or on one of the crypto-based money market platforms, liquidity, I guess. Do you believe this is possible, or how would it affect you?
I don't know.
Yeah, some interesting questions.
Yeah.
So let's move on to a couple of other things. Let's see. So we did the polling question. Let's finish off the last two polling questions to get them out of the way. So we have two more questions related to banks and crypto. So launching the poll. So as we've been talking about banks and crypto, two questions. How interested is your financial institution in providing cryptocurrency investing services? And if your bank gave you the ability to invest in crypto, how likely would you be to use its services? So let's give it 5 more seconds. So closing the poll in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ending the polling, and Irina sharing the results. Yeah, a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, how interesting.
Yeah.
Financial services and
so about 40.
Well, might use it or definitely use it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good. Let's get I was at a conference a couple of weeks ago, and somebody asked me, how are you going to market your bank? And I said, well, let me tell you about the bank. And then there's like a line forming saying, can I open an account? And I said, there you go. I'm just going to tell people about it. I don't, that's my marketing plan. I'm going to talk to a bunch of blockchain companies who really don't have other options. And then I'm going to go, talk to companies who want crypto solutions in their products. It's a bit of a joke. We should, and we will have a proper marketing plan, but inbound is already very strong for the need of what we're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting. The results were interesting. For that first question, it was 20% who were not interested. That is much lower. We had taken these questions from a Cornerstone survey that had asked the same inquiries. And for that first question, how interested is your financial institution in providing crypto services? The answer for that question in the survey was 79% not interested. So,
well, maybe because yours is phrased cryptocurrency investing services.
We actually use the same language.
Okay.
Yeah, and the same answers, except for we added I don't know.
Yeah.
And that was quite
I think if it's not I'm gonna guess, I don't know, but I would say if it's not investing services, but if I am a fintech, can I incorporate paying with crypto for something into my services? That I think that would be a stronger yes.
Gotcha.
You know, I mean, PayPal, right? Square, Robinhood, those are, you know, that's what maybe this question is about. But there's a few others who just want to incorporate having crypto. You know, I think there's a payroll service now that wants to incorporate that. You know, that's not even a fintech, but yeah.
Okay. So I think maybe moving on to the next section, and I want to make sure we leave time for additional questions. So this is going to hit one of the questions from the audience. So the whole aspect of ransomware attacks and hackers, we were talking about this yesterday, they're getting paid in cryptocurrencies and, you know, anonymous, hard to trace. How should companies in the industry in general kind of address this threat? And does this risk, you know, I guess, do the risks around this and the criminal element, could it adversely impact the ability, you know, to have a working crypto ecosystem in the description that you had said earlier?
So I was thinking about it yesterday when you said, so crypto does not encourage ransomware attacks. They were here before, and, you know, it doesn't encourage crime. There was a time when it was easier to pay, you know, with crypto to an anonymous wallet, and, you know, potentially that's still the case. You know, if you go in and try to hit fiat with any of the crypto, there's already, you know, a regulatory, you know, that's already a regulated activity. I think there's going to be bad actors in anything. You know, there are bad actors who use fiat and who use cash in such transactions. There are certain blockchains that have been criticized for being too anonymous. So, you know, I think that the more regulation we have and the more ability we have for people to do everything above board, the better. But, you know, I wouldn't say that I have a solution, or anyone in crypto has a solution of how to prevent it. You know, the blockchain is the blockchain. You know, it's all on there.
And then the analogy I was thinking about yesterday, it's a little bit crude, but when the internet came out, you know, one of the, I guess, the bigger or initial applications have been porn, right? And I think maybe that being, you know, not a great element didn't stop the internet from just growing and proliferating, right? So, you know, if this is a smaller part, there's still a lot of other issues and growth kind of throughout and other benefits, and hopefully there are ways to be able to mitigate some of these risks.
Well, I mean, at MetalPay, you can't do that because everybody has their social security associated with their account. So you can't pay ransom or launder money. You know, it's the same as having a bank account with your crypto. You know, before you even have a chance to put crypto into MetalPay, we KYC you. Other blockchains, you know, the Proton blockchain that, you know, that also we helped create, it's a public blockchain. There's a website that you type in a name and it tells you, you know, the name of the wallet, and it tells you exactly what transactions went through that wallet. Now there are ways to hide it, and you know, you can change your name potentially and whatnot. But if a regulator wanted to look at it, they could. You know, the blockchain is designed in such a way that it is open and public.
Right.
There are wallets where everything's anonymous. That's not the wallets that we condone per se. They're international. Also in the US, it's not very easy to set up a wallet like that, I believe.
Right. I think hopefully that answers Robert's question. He had some questions around security and what you're doing at Metal. So it sounds like with the social security number and other things that, you know, I guess keeps bad things from happening.
Yeah, I mean, everything is, you know, you can download a tax report to make sure that all of your reporting is properly done for tax purposes. You know, if a bank wants to review your account, they could. All of that is above, you know, it's like a bank. You know, once we're a bank, it's going to be even more so.
Right.
You know.
So it becomes interesting. So it seems like many of the traditional banks are not wanting to offer crypto services either because of volatility, or I think I had read something that the head of HSBC said they don't really want to do much in it because of some of those things. The perspective on that reluctance, do you see that the banks eventually have to get into this, otherwise they're going to get left behind?
Well, I don't know what their reasons are. I hear some of the reasons, but I actually think the reasons are infrastructure. Wow. That, how do you deal with Bitcoin? Like I said, Michael Saylor probably had to create his own exchange and his own custody service within the company to process those transactions. This is something that we understand really well because we already built it for Metallicus. MetalPay wallet has all the, back end of processing crypto transactions, and we have all of the technology behind it and security behind it. So I think the banks are going to struggle with the processes of, onboarding and offboarding crypto clients, and then the infrastructure within the bank of servicing the various crypto products.
Got it. So it really is a technology and infrastructure kind of problem.
Yeah. I don't think it's volatility. I mean, it could be, but if they're holding someone else's assets, it's the same as saying, the stock market is volatile. It's not the same amount of volatility, but, they hold other, some banks hold other countries' currencies, which are also very volatile. So I don't know if that's, it's of course a consideration, but I would guess that it's not the main one.
Sure. Okay, well, that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of other questions that came up. This relates to, I guess, products. So SB is asking, what is the difference between Metal and Gemini?
Fees. It's similar. The product, for a user, it is a similar product. Right, Gemini is an exchange, so they offer different types of products within the app. In terms of their interaction with fiat, it's very similar to what we have. I don't know if they have the same relationship and which bank they have a relationship with, and if the fiat on Gemini is FDIC insured. I would have to look at their TNCs, but as far as user experience, it's very similar. It's a matter of fees and the different currencies that you can buy on there. If you're just talking Bitcoin, it's probably the same. We list some coins that are not available in Gemini.
Gotcha.
And the other way around. Yeah.
Let's see. One other question here from Bernadine. So is a buy, sell, or transfer of crypto immediate, or is there a standard settlement period? If there is a settlement period, what is it, and will it depend on the type of crypto?
So the way MetalPay is set up it is immediate. The way we've set up our backend.
Say that again, Irina. Sorry.
It is immediate on MetalPay.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yep.
Got it. Okay. And then there's an interesting question here from Terry Lloyd. The CFOs in the audience will appreciate this one. So he says, the gurus of accounting, whom you love, have determined Bitcoin is not a currency or security, but an indefinite-lived intangible asset, meaning the original value must be periodically evaluated for impairment, like a trademark or some other intangible. Will this change as more people, maybe countries, accept it as a form of currency? Well,
that's a very relevant timing question with El Salvador. Everyone hears that they're making it their currency. I mean, I don't have an answer to that. I know that there's some work actually being done at the IRS in terms of, I don't know how far along they are, but someone mentioned it at the conference that I was at, in terms of how do you treat Bitcoin when you settle it, when you buy or sell goods with it, because right now it's treated as a security. I don't know. I don't know where it's going. I don't know where it's going to settle. I'd like to hope that it settles in a certain way that benefits us from a tax perspective and makes it more usable. But I don't know.
Yeah, it's interesting. Terry had a couple of questions, and one of the first ones did mention El Salvador. So this is the whole thing with, he said, El Salvador has put Bitcoin on par with the US dollar as acceptable currency. So do you think that will help Bitcoin's acceptance? Will it hurt it? Or his last question, is it another in a long series of fiscal missteps by El Salvador?
I mean, I don't think it's going to hurt it. You know, I had a call with our CEO right before this, and, you know, we were talking about how we can provide a wallet for use of El Salvador to implement this Bitcoin. You know, it's not a thing, right? It's not a coin you carry around. So you need a wallet to hold it in and transact. And we're saying, you know, we could consult with someone on using our wallet as you know, a feature, you know, as something that they would roll out there. I think it's yet to be seen. I think it's a very bold move. You know, it's a bold move. It's a big country. I don't know what it's going to do for their economy. I don't know if Bitcoin didn't jump in price. I mean, I was at the conference in Miami when this announcement was made live. We were watching this live, and, you know, Bitcoin did not go double in price at the, you know, right after or anything. But, you know, it was a very cool announcement. It was, you know, it was cool to be with, you know, thousands of people when that announcement was made.
Yeah, it's interesting. It didn't move the market much. That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, Elon Musk's tweets move it more than this, but I don't know, you know.
Yeah, that's good input. No, I was going to ask about Elon Musk. I was going to mention it. But.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't know if this is relevant or anyone cares for this clarification, but you could never buy a Tesla with Bitcoin. You could pay the $100 deposit with Bitcoin with a very high % premium on that $100. So the fact that, you know, he comes in and says, we are accepting Bitcoin for Tesla, now we're not, it was never, you know, a full car of 50,000, you know, you could never pay full Bitcoin. So the $100 fee that he was charging, I don't know how many people actually paid it, because, you know, as the CFOs in the audience will know, you also automatically pay your tax as soon as you do that. So that's why it's very interesting what moves the market, right? How educated are people really are.
Exactly. That's interesting clarification. We have one more question here from SB. He's saying, Bitcoins are very volatile. Will Metal hold capital and reserves in fiat currency or in Bitcoin?
We hold our reserve, we hold very little of our reserve in fiat.
Is there the potential for more volatility, or how do you handle or manage that?
We have various reasons for that, and we do manage them, you know, internally. You know, eventually we probably will hold more. You know, when the bank obviously comes around, we're gonna have to keep, you know, bank capital in fiat. But we are, you know, we have a process, and we have reasons, and we have securities around holding it not in fiat. But, you know, that's the truth.
Right. Okay. We have about 5 minutes left. So we've been trying to take the questions as they come in. So if you have any questions, please put them in the chat or the Q&A, and we'll take them. But I think in the meantime, Irina, we've covered so much. So as part of maybe the closing questions, so as you take a look at things and kind of where we are as part of the whole ecosystem, what's the biggest area of risk, I guess, that you see kind of globally, or you know, from a big picture with respect to the intersection of crypto and banking? Where should we be kind of looking at things, or, you know, what keeps you awake at night? Maybe another way to ask it.
I think that, you know, when people say, you know, more regulation is needed, you know, what kind of keeps me up at night is regulation that's not thought through, and that is going to encourage more of these kind of bad players versus allowing the good companies and the good users of crypto to be regulated just enough, but not any more, that they are okay with it. And that's, that goes also for taxes, right? We can tax it the way, it's currently being taxed, but perhaps there is another way to do it that would make people use the crypto more and result in more taxes going to the government, but maybe not as much, being paid by the individuals, yet they can actually use the crypto more. So my concern always is too much, getting into the, too strict of a space, that the innovation doesn't improve and doesn't come through, and that the bad actors just say, I can go around it. I'd rather go around it.
Right.
Yeah.
And in terms of, I guess, what you're still anticipating feedback from the OCC. So any hints that they may be going kind of that direction on the spectrum, or is it too early to tell?
I think it's too early to tell, but I'll be honest, I'm looking at everything with my, view of we're moving in the right direction. So everything I read that comes out of the OCC or any regulation, we try to spin it in a positive way for the industry and for us. And, we write responses when they're asked, and hopefully that's going to help.
Right. And it seems like at least what you've been experiencing so far is kind of in line with the philosophy of regulation is good for the industry because it will create a working ecosystem, right? So it hasn't gotten to the point where they pushed it too far along the spectrum of it being too, strict, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think there is no way to outlaw anything. It's just putting the right parameters around what we have now.
And so a related question to that last thing you were talking about, risk. But then I guess on the positive side, what is the biggest opportunity, that you see with the intersection of crypto and banking? Where are we going to see, the biggest benefit, I guess, potentially?
Well, I think it's, once banks incorporate crypto and fintechs incorporate crypto, it's going to be very mainstream, and banking will become more accessible and cheaper. And because right now you can't send a 20-cent wire. It will cost you $20 to do that. You can't do it within seconds either, but you can on the blockchain. I think that's going to open up a lot of opportunities the different unbanked than the ones I'm discussing, the individuals, the businesses who need things done quicker, in a regulatory environment. But the blockchain technology is amazing, and it should be incorporated in financial institutions and fintechs.
I think we can do a whole other session just on blockchain, right, and get Marshall.
That's what I was saying, and we can do one about the liquidity of markets and stable coins as well.
I think we have time for one more question that Matt got in here. So any concerns about a single coin failing like Tether and taking down the market?
I mean, what does failing mean? That there's not enough dollars behind Tether? That's been a concern in the industry. Yes, that there's not, that everybody will come and cash in their Tether and there won't be enough dollars. I guess, right? If everybody came into a bank right now and asked to withdraw all of their money, would the banks have it? When we were going to look into our own stable coin, BPM was going to be engaged to audit that. So I hope that's, that would be the case for it not failing.
And Matt, if we didn't get your question, if I didn't get your question right, you can pop in. You can unmute yourself.
Yeah.
I'm on mute. So yeah, sorry about that. I don't know enough about this to speak with any depth, but my thinking is if Tether isn't actually backed by anything, and then all of a sudden we realize that, and people are holding Tether and they've used it to stake other currencies or leverage positions. Is that a concern at all?
I believe that this is a concern in the industry.
Okay.
You know,
fair enough. Just
yes, you know, us as a company don't hold enough Tether for us to be a concern. I don't personally either, but I think as an industry, I've heard people be concerned about it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you know, I don't want to end with this, or if we want to, definitely would not put any more into any cryptocurrency, including stable coins, than you can afford to lose. This is, you know, there's zero chance of us ever given any investment advice on anything like that. You know, I joke, you know, I have a daughter, you know, say I don't, you know, take her food money and buy Bitcoin with it. I don't mortgage my house. You know, there's been instances where people lost a lot of money in this. This is not, in, you know, in my personal opinion, the time or the industry to be throwing, you know, absolutely everything you own into. And this goes for companies or individuals.
Right.
You know, if, you know, and, you know, Michael Saylor put an amount that hopefully he can afford to lose in there, but, you know, he has other calculated risks that he's taking. But, you know, for us in this group, I guess I definitely would never, you know, advise or, you know, even like to hear people talking about this. You know, this is very volatile. This is very unknown. Unless, you know, until it's regulated and has insurances, I definitely would be very, very careful.
Right, and so it kind of puts us back to, you know, the reason for, I guess, the intersection here of trying to go the way of banks and the direction that you guys have been following, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
So, Irina, we run out of time. That went by really quick.
Yeah, it did.
Last words or you know, perspective for the audience. I think we'd asked about the risks and the opportunity takeaways. Anything else that you want to leave the group?
I would just say, you know, please be open-minded to crypto, to Bitcoin, to blockchain, you know, and you don't have to agree with, you know, what Bitcoin stands for, what crypto stands for, but blockchain is a technology that, you know, is innovative, it's new. And I would say, you know, if you're a CFO, if you are a banking professional, you know, I encourage you to educate yourself, because this is not going anywhere, and be open-minded. And you know, Marshall and I are always very happy to meet new people and help them in their kind of pursuit of crypto and blockchain in their businesses. So we're always open.
No, that's great.
Thank you.
No, thank you for joining us. Great insights and perspective. And for the folks in the audience, we have recorded this, so we'll be sharing the recording. We don't really have that many slides, but we'll share the slides as well with everybody. So thank you again, Irina. It was a pleasure to have you. And thank you for joining us. Hope everybody has a terrific evening. And for folks who are joining us for networking, we'll send out those links shortly, and we'll start at 6 o'clock. So take everybody, have a great evening.